the tried and true advice is true now as it was when I started back in 2008. And that is, you need to focus as much of your energy and effort on building an actual mailing list that you own versus building a platform on social media or elsewhere. You can still have those platforms. Mm-hmm. That email list is where all of my money comes from.
For those that don't know me, my name is April Cox. I'm the founder of Little Labradoodle Publishing and creator of Self-Publishing Made Simple. We are here today with an awesome topic. You have probably heard about all of the different things that are happening with Amazon. I have had so many authors reaching out to me trying to find out, how do I get my account reinstated? Is it good to go, wide or go with Amazon? And, having trouble with Amazon. And one of my authors lost his whole business. So it took us 2 years of brand building. And in one fell swoop, his whole account was closed down. He has been impacted severely. So we have got an amazing speaker here today. Let me tell you a little bit about Kevin Tomlinson. He is a best-selling and award-winning author, public speaker, podcast host. He is known as the voice of indie publishing, a frequent traveler, van life enthusiast, and so much more. He is a highly respected influencer in the indie author community and has helped hundreds of thousands of authors to start, build, and grow their author career since 2013. He reaches millions of listeners worldwide and frequently is invited to deliver keynotes, speak at conferences and events around the globe. And today he's here with us. It is such an amazing honor to have you here, Kevin. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, you're welcome. The honor is all mine. I love talking to authors.
Good. So you have lots of different roles that you've served. Yeah. What do you like the most?
I'm a writer first and foremost. No matter what else I've done in my life and career, the writing has always been there. I've actually, the apocryphal story is that I wrote my first book when I was 5 years old because I had one of those big chief notepads, that you learn to write in. And I had that big fat pencil and I wrote my book and tore the pages out and taped it together and drew a cover. And so I've been self-publishing for a long time.
Tell us about your author journey. What kind of writing or what kind of genres do you write in? And then how has your author journey led you to Draft to Digital?
For publishing, I had a traditional contract for a brief moment there in my life, and it kind of fell apart. And that was all sci-fi. I wrote science fiction when I first started. And then I started doing podcasting when I got into independent publishing. And I did a show with a guy named Nick Thacker called Self-Publishing Answers. And on that show, he was a thriller writer and he dared me to write a thriller. So I did. And then that just blew up. That just took off. And so I started writing thrillers full time. I've got about 70 books total out right now. And of those, the bulk are archaeological thrillers. And I'm starting to branch into other genres and things again now. I'm just kind of at a point where I want to get back to some of my roots and then explore other types of stories. But, I haven't met a genre I didn't like. Well, I've met a couple. Then the way that I ended up at Draft to Digital, so I had a show for several years called the Wordslinger Podcast. And I would interview people like movers and shakers in all kinds of industries, but primarily in the publishing industry. And I interviewed Dan Wood from Draft to Digital. He's currently our chief operating officer. But at the time, he was he's more of a marketing guy or something. I interviewed him for the show. Afterwards, I had said, because I had a whole marketing business I ran on my own, copywriting and marketing work for clients. And I had said, hey, if you guys ever need a hand with your marketing, let me know. And like 2 weeks later, I got a call asking if I could help with the launch of their universal book links. And that led to an offer, like not very pretty close after, to be their director of marketing. And I've been there now 7 years. So, and in that time, I've done podcasts and I've talked at conferences and I've done coaching calls and, you name it. So I've literally talked to and helped thousands of authors to do this work. I am the director of marketing and PR. So my role is to do basically what I do for my own books for Draft to Digital as a whole. So I promote us. I'm kind of the public face of the company a lot of the time. Do a lot of travel and speaking on their behalf, and just run any marketing and promotions oriented programming. It's an interesting thing to be a part of because I get to see this business from both sides, like the outside / inside, although there's not really an outside to this business, but I'm both an author and a service provider. And what's been interesting for me is I don't have to work for Draft to Digital. Like my books make plenty of money. I'm living in what I call the house that books built. We were able to travel full time 2 different times in my career. I've been able to leave home behind and travel full time for a couple of 2 or 3 years at a stretch. We're thinking about doing that internationally. So I don't have to work for Draft to Digital. The reason I'm there is because I love the author community so much that I enjoy being a part of it, but I also just enjoy sharing what I've learned and helping the author community grow. And that's a big part of what Draft to Digital does.
You've been hearing lots of complaints about Amazon and some of the new issues that are happening. Tell us more about, Amazon and being exclusive versus how Draft to Digital changes that. What's the pros and cons of exclusive and not? And
sadly, what I'm seeing from Amazon right now is stuff that we've kind of been predicting, and we didn't want to get too heavy-handed about it, but like almost since the start, Draft to Digital started in 2012, and we have from the start said, exclusivity is a bad game for authors for a variety of reasons, and not the least of which is if they decide to change the rules, you have nothing to say about it. If something goes wrong, you have nothing to say about it. And that we're starting to see that happening quite a bit now. So the difference between, the exclusivity at Amazon has had certain economical advantages for some authors. That's very, hard to argue. And we don't even try because we recognize that. Ironically, I was just writing about the differences today in a book that I'm going to be releasing soon. But the thing that Draft to Digital does for you, it's wide distribution allows you to spread out that source of revenue. And so rather than you're relying on a single source that could change its mind on a whim, you are building a platform that is a little more stable because it's got a broader base. The downside to that, just put it out there up front, is you don't make quite as much money as quickly as you do when you go exclusive. But I actually just did the math on this today for this chapter and figured out that, so the rules for KDP Select are, you're exclusive to that platform. They do that normalized page read that they pay you on at like 5/100ths of a cent. So if you have a 300-page book, the most you're going to make for that book is $1.50. Even if your sales price is $6.99, where you would have made $4.89 on a 70% royalty, you're going to make $1.50.
My group is even worse because they're children's book authors. The lion's share of them are children's book authors.
Yeah.
So if we're doing a 32 or 36-page book,
you're making practically nothing. I haven't done that math, so I don't have that off the top of my head. But but what I did discover was there's also a limit on the number of pages a specific reader can read and you get paid for each month. And that's 3,000 pages, right? So if you're a prolific author, or if you write tomes like some fantasy authors do, you're going to hit that. For me at 300, if I have a 300-page novel, that means that I'm only selling 10 novels per month to that reader at most, even if they read all 70 of my books. Which means I make a whopping $15 off of that reader for the month, rather than the $50 or so that I would make if they started buying all the books. So when you start actually looking at the math of it, it's attractive to be exclusive because the money is quote unquote easy, and it kind of is, because they do promote the books that are in that catalog. There is a halo effect that can happen. There's all kinds of nice benefits to it. What I discovered was that halo wears off pretty quick now. There used to be a point where when I did a new release on Amazon, I could count on 60 days, sometimes up to 90 days of residual sales from that release. Now it's more like 15 days, and then it disappears. So being dependent on Amazon for your income is really challenging now. But the downside to going wide, and we'll just put this right out in front, is it takes a lot longer to build up that base of readers and to make that income.
Explain what you mean by that. It takes a little bit longer, like why and what's involved in that. Yeah.
So these other platforms. So when you go wide, the sort of textbook definition is that you are making your book available on as many different platforms as possible, right? You may not have an audience already built, so you're going to have to spend your time marketing to readers of those platforms. And so that's just a time-consuming process. What none of the other retailers seem to do as well as Amazon does is promote these new books internally. So you don't get a lot of extra boost. So, you release a book in KU, they have a vested interest in getting as many subscribers as possible. So the larger their catalog, the better it appeals to people. And they also want to show that there's new content all the time. So when they have a new release, they'll promote it for a while, but they get so many new releases that window is starting to get more and more narrow. The other retailers don't have that advantage. It's very challenging sometimes to even find readers on, say, Apple. I love Apple and I get a lot of sales from Apple, but finding my books on Apple is a very arduous process. There's no like stumble upon traffic, it can happen, but it's sort of it's pure luck. There's no way to strategize around making sure someone discovers your book. And even just finding a link to send them to that book is sometimes challenging. So, there are challenges there. And it's actually much worse, though, for the authors who started off in KU and were exclusive to the KDP Select program. If you are doing well in that program, but you decide it's time to go wide, the problem at that point is that now you are effectively starting from scratch. You spent all that time, energy, and money marketing to just Amazon readers. And even among those, a specific narrow subset of Amazon readers. And now as you start to branch out and go to other platforms, you don't have an audience and you have to start over with the marketing and start attracting those readers. And so it can actually be a much longer process to succeed wide if you start after being exclusive than when you start from scratch zero in the first place. The recommendation I make is let's leverage Amazon and make as much money as we can, but keep it at 1 to 3 books. Okay. So if you're going to write more than 3 books, this is your strategy. If you're only going to write 1 or 2 books, then, you could probably stay in KU and make pretty decent money if that's what you want. It depends on your goal. If your goal is make a lot of money very quickly, KU's your game. If your goal is build a long-term, long-tail plan and tough it out and then make more money later, that's a much more stable plan, in my opinion. But it's going to be up to you and your business needs. But I would recommend that if you are going to write series, for example, now this isn't children books per se, that the game probably changes quite a bit with that format because of length and et cetera. But, as a novelist, if I'm releasing a novel, I know I'm going to do an entire 10-book series. I would leverage books 1 through 3 on KU. And then as soon as the 90 days runs out for each one, pull it and take it wide. But then everything above those 3 books launches wide right out of the gate.
There probably are a number of people that are watching or with us today that don't even know what Draft to Digital is. Let's take a step back for a second and just talk about what is it? Why do we need it? And, kind of go through that process with us.
So Draft to Digital it's a publishing aggregator. And what we mean by that is you can come to us with your manuscript in a Microsoft Word document or an RTF file or something like that, or even a pre-formatted EPUB, and you upload it to us. We can convert your Word file or whatever for you for free. And we have these layout templates and things that you can use. But what we're doing is we're going to distribute that to a growing network of retailers that we have partnered with. We don't charge any money whatsoever for anything that we do. It's going to be about a 15% cut of the royalty by the time it's all said and done. But we take a cut of royalty when you sell a book through us on those platforms. The benefit for you is we make things very easy. I mean, we're basically founded by authors, and we have a whole bunch of authors on staff, including myself. And so we all know the pain points for authors. So we have very good, notable customer support. The author community loves us. Google us and you'll find that out. The thing that we're doing is making it really easy and simple for you to distribute your books to as many places as possible and see your sales reports in one place. And because one of the things that happens with the retailers, you can go to every retailer individually and you'll make more money. That's just straight up true because you don't pay the 15% cut to us. But what happens is every retailer has a different set of guidelines and rules about formatting, about everything from font style to, I mean, there's all kinds of rules, and some of them have fees they charge for delivery. And, there's a lot of things that can happen on that. We smooth all that out. You only have to upload your manuscript one time. We will format it and make sure that it is appropriate for every single retailer. We distribute it on your behalf. And that's it. We don't own anything. You can remove your book at any time. We just take that 15% cut, and that's all the money we ever make. So we have a vested interest in trying to get your book to sell as well. So we've also started building and putting out some promotional tools. And we have a person who runs.
I was just going to ask about whether or not there's any kind of promotional things, because with Amazon, there's not a lot of flexibility unless you're doing, a free ebook deal or something like that, which really make it some more eyeballs, but it doesn't give us that flexibility to do some really good promos either.
Well, and the problem with Amazon's, their scheduled pricing and things like that is that you can only do that if you're in the Kindle Unlimited program.
Right.
So if you're not exclusive to Amazon, you can't do sales pricing. However, if you're distributing to Amazon through us, which I actually don't recommend, but if you are, we have a promotional pricing tool. So you can actually schedule a promotional price. Like I have one scheduled right now for my book Evergreen. And so I set the price to like $2.99, and it automatically changed it on the date that I needed it for all the different retailers. And then it will automatically change it back for me at the end of the promotion. And I can run that promotion. It's not like a 5-day deal or something like that. I've got it all through May. And then I can actually see the data of, how many clicks the link got and that sort of thing. All that stuff's available to me. If you're using a strategy like that, Amazon won't let you schedule a price change through their system directly, but you can do that through Draft to Digital if you like. My recommendation, though, is go direct to Amazon. There's no point in using us to get to Amazon. I do use Draft to Digital to distribute my nonfiction books to Amazon because they don't hit as hard for me. Like I'm not really worried about it, but I make much more money going direct to Amazon. So I use Amazon Direct, and I remove that option when I'm going wide. And then Draft to Digital will distribute to all the other retailers, Apple, Kobo, Barnes & Noble. There's no contract or restrictions or rules. You can pull that book anytime. So you are able to try it out. And if you don't like the experience, you could still go wide, and you could even use the converted file we gave you to do that. That file belongs to you. So we do ebooks and print. We have some really cool tools on the print side.
When I was doing wide stuff with my first couple of children's books, there was no such thing. And recently you guys announced print options, and that I was like, okay,
and
I need to know more about this. So tell us, because we're a lot of children's book authors here, as well as those watching. So tell me, what does this do for us?
We'll be improving on the options for D2D print in the future. Right now, it's restricted to a few different trim sizes, and it's all black and white, and it's not, there's no color interior right now.
Okay.
That's something that's coming.
So it's good for chapter books and to do. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're partnered with Ingram Spark. So we have their expanded distribution network, which means that if you reach out to, libraries and brick and mortar stores, and you can convince them to order your book, they can order the book and stock it through that regular catalog. it's still about marketing. You still got to go and do the footwork and convince them to buy the books.
Is that what you're saying? We wouldn't need to go in and upload print books to Ingram and also draft to digital?
Right. You wouldn't necessarily need to, but Ingram has actually changed some things in the past couple of weeks that I think make it, if you're already familiar with their system and you've got it down, just stick with them because it's the same distribution. I probably shouldn't say that because, I'm supposed to be encouraging you to use our service, but I will say this. We're not competition to Ingram. All right. I'll just make that clear. We are partners with them. Eventually be able to offer everything that they offer. We're rolling things out and making sure our system doesn't implode. But I will say the key difference is, like, I tried to set something up on Ingram just a few days ago and I had a problem, and there's no way at all for me to reach their support. I can't find any way to get support for my problem.
I'll give you a hint. If you want a tip here, go to their Facebook page, Ingram Spark Publisher, and you message them there, and their support monitors that. And it's usually a quick turnaround to get attention.
That's good advice. Okay. And I will remember that to tell others as well. But I will say that when our customer support is the thing that we're most known for. Okay. Like, a lot of people think of us as author support for the world. Like, they'll come to us with problems that we can't even solve. Like, I'm having a problem. Amazon took down my account. What do I do? And like, we can't do anything to help you with Amazon directly like that. Unless you're going to them through us, we have no voice in that. But, we get a lot of people who are they love that support so much that they come to us hoping we can fix all the problems. And sometimes we can.
I have just as many people frustrated with Ingram Spark as with Amazon right now, because it is a pain. There are some crazy nuances and things that happen so is your front end and your support better to the point where it might even be worth considering going there and getting the support through draft to digital and kind of not worrying about going direct to Ingram?
Dale Roberts just released a video comparing POD services. We didn't do as well as some others, but we're going to improve. But the thing that the author he was working with said that I thought was great was that we were easy as butter. That's an exact quote. From an ease of use standpoint, we've nailed that. And we've already fixed some of the things that were called out in that video. But, in all fairness, we just opened this and
it's brand new, right?
Yeah, but we always make sure that those hiccups, things end up erring on the side of the author. Like we want to make sure you're taken care of. If there's quality issues, you get a box of books and the covers are nicked or torn or whatever, like, we'll take care of you. And we're doing our best to kind of overcome some of the other limitations. Some of those are imposed on us by Ingram. And the more books we end up sending their way, the more clout we have. So we get negotiating power, and we always pass all those deals on to the author. So if we can reduce the price of author copies, we're going to do it. If we can reduce the price of a proof copy, we're going to do it. We're getting to the point where we're improving quite a bit. And we're going to expand all the options there. There's tools that we have that are unique to draft to digital among all POD services. And one of those is, like, if you came into us with your ebook, like, all you have is an ebook and the cover for that ebook. We actually can convert the ebook into a print ready file for you, and we can distribute that, or you can download it, and we can convert your ebook cover into a full wraparound print cover automatically. That looks great. Okay. It doesn't take your artwork and extend it around, but what it does is it finds like an average of the front cover color and then uses that around the spine and the back. And then you can change the book description. You can add or remove an author bio and photo. There's all these little things that you can do. Even the colophon, like the little logo on the spine, you can upload your own if you have one. Like, I have one for my print imprint. Right. Happy Pants.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be doing some videos and using draft to digital and kind of cataloging what's happening and chronicling that as far as the ease of uploads and the ease of use, and testing out the support options, because I think that is huge, especially for new publishers and new authors that are just getting started. The support both by Amazon and Ingram really suck.
Yeah. And in fairness, I mean, Amazon though they purport to be, and they began in the book business, they're not really a book business, and they're not an author business. And so, they just don't have much of a vested interest in making sure that you have a good user experience. We get treated pretty poorly by comparison to like the customers. I'm much more likely to have a good experience if I write them asking about, why does this book look like garbage or whatever as a customer than if I had the same problem as an author. So, and Ingram's kind of the same way. Like, they're very large. They serve a very large industry, and customer support is an expensive thing to develop. So, we've started it with that. That's where we've been this whole time. We're basically a customer support company with some print and ebook options. It's what we are.
Gail says middle grade would work for 90 days KU and then go wide. So chapter book sounds like you could recommend doing that.
I would.
Okay.
It's hard for me to say when it comes to like, children's books like picture books and things. Mm-hmm. We don't do a lot of that yet at Drafted Digital. If you want to distribute that as an ebook, we absolutely can help with that. But the print side, it would just be a black and white book. And I don't think that's very attractive to most children's book authors. I also just don't know if that strategy works for that group or not. I don't think you're risking much by trying that strategy. I always tell authors, if they're patient enough to do this, to create 3 books before they launch the first one, and then do a book a month for 3 months. That's a rapid release strategy. In that strategy, what I would do is sit the first book up, get it going, and release the second book. After 90 days, that first book is free to go out. That's when I would start promoting wide. Take that book out of KU at that point, go wide with it, start advertising. So you get effectively most of a year as a buffer of potential income from KU readers. And you'll see right away when you pull that first book out, do you start seeing sales? And you still have about 30 days at that point before the second book comes out. So it might behoove you to test that. And if it looks like it's going to flub, then you're not losing much. You can go right back into KU. You just got to delist from everywhere else.
One of the things I really like the idea, it seems to me like when you are wide, you have a much better chance of getting BookBub deals. Am I wrong there?
I've heard 2 different sides on that conversation. My experience is that I got more BookBubs after I went wide. I did get, my first couple of BookBubs were when I was in KU. It's kind of hard for me to gauge personally. And I've talked to quite a few authors, and it seems like a pretty even split of people who think yay or nay on that. So my gut instinct says it doesn't actually matter. I think BookBub does have a more vested interest in getting your wide titles, I would think. That's my theory. They're going to make more money overall because they have all those different lists. They have, I'm sure, an Amazon specific list. So they would only send that, but that's not going to be as big as the entire range of lists. So my gut says they're probably going to favor books that are wide, but I don't have any evidence for that.
JQ says, I understand, use Amazon for US and then wide distribution. I don't think you were saying specifically for US, right?
Yeah, that's a good point to clarify, is that there's a couple of different ways in which the publishing industry uses the term wide distribution. Some instances, they do actually mean US versus global. You can actually do that form of wide distribution through Amazon because they have multiple regions. But when we're saying wide distribution, what we mean is multiple platforms outside of Amazon. So exclusive, when we say exclusive, we're almost always talking about KDP Select and Amazon. That's not just across the board. They're the ones that are most prominent as an exclusive distributor. The terms around Amazon's exclusivity are you are literally locked into Amazon and Amazon only for a period of a minimum of 90 days. And you have to opt out of that, by the way. So you have to make sure you turn it off before it renews, or you're opted in for another 90 days. Amazon, as big as Amazon is, they don't cover every market in the world. They cover, I think at this point, it's 13 regions out of around 200 plus. So you're not going to get your book to certain readers in certain regions through Amazon. And now, from what I understand, and I would have to verify this, but my understanding is that if they don't reach a region, then you are not breaking their terms of service by distributing through someone else to that region. That's my
Okay.
understanding, but I don't count on it. Go do your research.
Right. Leslie's saying when you mentioned 15 for each set, is it for each sale for a draft to digital?
Yeah. So
Okay.
each time a book sells, there's a 15% cut of royalty that comes to us. And that 15%, there's a little tilde in front of that because it's sort of around 15%. And then the reason we say that is because, and 15% is like the high end, because it's sort of a 10 to 15% range. It all kind of depends on the retailer. That's what makes it challenging for us versus Amazon. Amazon can say for sure, you're getting 70%. Or you're getting 35%. All the retailers have that range. Like, Apple might do a 60 or 70%. We're taking our cut out of that. And what we're allowed to take from that is sometimes determined by the retailer. So it can vary very slightly, but 15% is kind of the upper level. So that we always just say that to be safe.
Great question here from Alice. She says, can you take print journals and workbooks and turn them into ebooks?
We have been issued an order from Ingram that they are no longer accepting low content books. And so blank journals and anything that, maybe just a sentence per page or something like that, they don't want that. We're kind of trying to push back against that. But even Amazon is starting to kind of down on the low content stuff. So it's kind of a universal thing. I think I don't know why, honestly. To me, it makes no difference. But I think there's a perception that readers may be buying a book thinking it's going to be, something they read, and it turns out to be blank, and so they feel ripped off. I think that's what Ingram is saying, at least. So we can't take those. If you're doing a workbook and you've got sort of a chapter in there, or maybe it's 2 or 3 pages of content, and then there's a blank page at the end for notes, that's different. We could probably do that with no problem. And in fact, we have some like that. Like I've got a book like that. So, if someone pushes back, they haven't given us a minimum on the amount of content that's required. So it's still Wild West territory, figuring out like what they'll accept and what they won't.
And see if you can get it. And if they accept it, great, you can move forward. So if somebody has put together a Word doc or whatever, and it is that medium content, then uploading it and having you convert it to an ebook, that does work, right?
Yeah, ebooks, there's not really much of a limitation. If you're sending out an ebook that's like 10% text and 90% blank, that's a problem. Someone's going to question that. But yeah, there's not as many limitations on ebooks, so you can get away with a little bit more.
I can open up an ebook on my tablet, and I can use my stylus to take notes on it and do it that way digitally.
Yeah.
So that would make a great ebook, I think. And I think it's just having a certain app on the thing that would let me fill it out. Yeah.
Yeah. I think in that case, really sort of a trial and error. Those books take a lot less work to organize. So you can experiment a little better and a little faster. I don't see any reason why we would flat out reject that. The retailer's rule when it comes to what is going to be acceptable. That's sort of an unfortunate rule because Apple's done this to us. Like, we don't want any books that feature, this word on the cover. I mean, we'll get ridiculous rules like that. We have no choice. Like, we don't get to push back because Apple could easily say, well, then nobody who distributes to Apple through you is going to be allowed to distribute a book. And we can't risk that for the authors. So we do what we're told. And we push back as much as we can. We don't want them to start blocking content of any kind. But, they do restrict like certain types of erotica, for example, are not allowed. And so, we have to tell those authors that can't do it. And then we get called prudes, or we get called, we're violating their rights or whatever. But it's what it is. We can only do what we're allowed to do.
So Donna says she is releasing 3 chapter books in a series. She's wondering how that would go. She's saying KU for 90 days, 1, 2, 3 rapid release, and then join D2D. So just kind of like reiterating some of what you've recommended. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good strategy. You could also just go wide. You don't have to go to KU. The only reason I recommend that as part of your strategy is because it can sometimes be much easier to at least get some money going at KU, but the downside still applies. The biggest downside to exclusivity is that your entire audience is on that platform, in that app, or in that subscription. So when you do go wide, one, you lose that group. You lose the KU subscribers because they're not buying individual books. They're only buying KU books, or they're only checking them out. So now you've just basically gone back to zero. You can spend your marketing time and dollars wisely and bring in Amazon readers in general, at least. And so the metric I used for my books was as soon as I started seeing individual sales outpace the page reads I was being paid for, I knew it was time to go wide. But that was a long strategy, and I still had to start over on the other platforms. So really, my best recommendation is just, tough it out. If you've got 3 books, you could do a wide distribution from the start, release a book a month for 3 months. In that 3 months, try to write book 4 and just continue like that. And then that way you capture a wider base of readers. You may not make as much money up front, but over the long term, you're building a much bigger, broader base. And that's, from a marketing perspective, that's what you want. You want as many threads of revenue as you can pull together.
What happens if a bookstore returns the book? Are you basically using the same return type policies that Ingram does?
So Ingram isn't giving us that return policy yet, and we're working on that. That's going to be your toughest barrier to getting brick and mortar stores to carry that book, is because there's no return. The thing that does work is if a reader comes in and says, I want this book, and they order it, that bookstore is probably going to order it. The smaller independent stores might balk at that if they see that there's no return. But, we are working on that. It's a kind of a pain in the butt because Ingram offers that, but they're not extending it to their partner network.
Oh, that's so
not yet. Okay. But our theory, and we think this is true, is, we have close to 1 million books available right now. The more of those we can start transitioning over to print, the more power we have to negotiate. So Our goal is to convince our base authors to try us out for print and get those ebooks into print. That's why we made it really easy to convert an ebook to a print book, because it's just a click of a button and boom, you're in print now. So we're trying to convince everybody to do that so that we have enough muscle to get better deals from Ingram.
What are some of the marketing strategies that you could recommend or that you would be doing starting as a new author? You're advising a new author.
I will tell you the tried and true advice is true now as it was when I started back in 2008. And that is, you need to focus as much of your energy and effort on building an actual mailing list that you own versus building a platform on social media or elsewhere. You can still have those platforms. Mm-hmm. That email list is where all of my money comes from. That group of readers who subscribed to my email newsletter, and I send something out a minimum of once a week. And that's where almost every sale comes from. I've stopped advertising at this point because it was just kind of a waste of my dollars. I was getting a trickle of revenue from advertising and working really hard to get it. The method I use now, instead of ads, is every month I select a book. I've got a spreadsheet of my books and I've got a little formula that says this book can now be promoted. I wait 90 days to re-promote the same book, but I'll pick one of my books. I'll put it on a promotional price for the entire month. So there's one for May right now. I set the price at $2.99 because at $2.99, I'm able to get a 70% royalty from Amazon and the higher royalty from all the other retailers. And then I send an email every Friday. The email is not a promotional email per se. It's what I call a personable email, meaning I'm talking to them about something else. One of the emails I have sent out was talking about how I love my motorcycle and how I got caught in the rain, but it was still worth it. And, all the motorcycles and scooters and things I've owned in my life. And so that's what it was. And at the bottom of it is a little ad I built in Canva that says, This month's promoted adventure is evergreen for $2.99. And here's the link. And all that stuff gets linked. Well, I consistently see a spike in sales every Friday from that promotional email, even though it's not specifically promoting that book. I don't promote on social media. I do a little. Rarely see sales from social media. Everything comes from that newsletter. Recently, I don't know if any of you know, his pen name is Johnny B. Truant. He's an indie author. He wrote a series of books called Fat Vampire, and they got picked up by the Sci-Fi Channel as a series. The first season is available on Hulu now, and the second season is coming out on Sci-Fi in a few months. He lives in the Austin area, so he and I hang out every now and then. And I was talking to him, and he started using Substack. And I had heard of it, but didn't quite understand what it was. But effectively, Substack is a blogging platform that is also a newsletter platform.
Right.
And so you can use it to build a newsletter, and you can even monetize that content. Like say, hey, I charge $1 a month or $8 a month for this content. I was able to import my mailing list to that. And then I've been consistently gaining new subscribers every day. I own that list. I can download that list and take it elsewhere if I want. So there's no hangups there. And then they handle everything. It's all free. So I would actually, at this point in my career, recommend to authors that they go create a Substack and at least once a week, write a blog post that's really an email. And don't forget to put a little thing at the bottom of it that says, buy my book, buy this book, go on Canva and make a graphic. I'm predicting that's going to be one of the most powerful author marketing tools that we've seen in years.
Wow.
Some of what they're doing, it's very SEO oriented, search engine optimized oriented. So there's higher discoverability. I was writing a blog before anyone ever called it a blog. Like before they even used the term weblog, which ultimately became blog, I had a recurring post on my website, and it was just it's just this growing stream of words. So I've been blogging for a long time. I have never gotten the kind of traction from blogging that I am getting from this platform. And the fact that it's tied in with a newsletter system, I'm gaining subscribers every day. They're on my newsletter now. Once a week or so, I write something and send it out, do the same sorts of techniques I did. And by the way, I'm a founder of authoremail.com. I'm a founder of an email newsletter service. So I know email and I know how to use it. But this Substack is a game changer for authors.
That's great. And it sounds to me like when you have multiple authors who have a good newsletter and you're able to do some cross promotion, newsletter swaps, things like that, that can exponentially help grow together. So that's
that whole
option.
Newsletter swap thing has been hugely beneficial for me in growing my list, but it becomes even easier on something like Substack because your content can be instantly shared. So I, as a creator on that platform, if I read Johnny's latest post and I want my readers to see it, I can click a button and share that with my readers. And so we get that cross-pollination that is invaluable for authors. And like I said, I do a newsletter swap at least once a quarter with a group of other thriller writers. And that's been hugely beneficial to me for growing my platform, finding new readers. But it's limited because after a while, we all have the same list. We've been we've been swapping newsletters internally for a couple of years. This is a way to get fresh eyes on your stuff, which is just so vital.
This has been really helpful, and I really appreciate all of the time that you've spent with us. Thank you so much for doing this. Any final parting words for encouragement for new authors that you want to?
Yes. The first thing I want to say, really the main thing I want to say is, you're going to find a million services like Draft Digital and Substack or whatever. It can get overwhelming. And so the advice I got that was most helpful to me was don't worry about any of that. Find the one thing that you're comfortable doing and do that for 30, 60, 90 days, however long it takes you to master that in terms of marketing your work, the way you distribute, whatever. Don't worry about all the other stuff. But once you've mastered that, then add the next thing and master that.
You don't have to do it all at once.
Don't have to do it all because it all feels super overwhelming. Like, do I market on Instagram and Pinterest and Twitter and Facebook and all these other platforms, or do I just stick with one? What if I hate Instagram? So the thing is, do the thing you love doing. Don't do something you hate. Don't ever do anything you hate. If you hate it, it's not good marketing because even if it's bringing you money, it's sucking your soul dry and you're just eventually it's going to lead to something negative. So focus all your energy on doing something that you enjoy to market your work, and something that also brings you benefit, and something that you can learn from and grow from, so that you can apply what you learn to the next thing. And then just keep go stack. That's the way you do it.
I love it. Thank you again. Where can people go if they want to join your newsletter, or if they want to connect with you?
You can go to my website. See, I haven't yet. I'm new on the Substack thing, so I don't have the address memorized. I think it's like kevintomlinson.substack.com or something, but just go to my website.
If you send me the link, or I'll look it up or whatever, I'll post it in the video and follow up with the group here. So your Substack would be a good one. Sounds to me like that would be a great way for newbies to kind of follow along what you're doing and how you're growing.
Yeah, because I'm learning it too. I've got 2 posts. I mean, I've only just started. And so, but I've already seen, a few thousand people join my mailing list in the past 2 weeks, so not even past amazing. 2 weeks, like past week and a half, as it hadn't been long. So I'm a big fan already.
All right. Great. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Hope to have you back again soon, Kevin. Thanks again for connecting.
Anytime.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.